Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you about a recent conversation I had with my uncle on my dad's side of the family. I told most of you my relatives are in Florida. Most of them are there. And he was telling me back in August, they were driving along the shoreline down there in Florida. And he said when he looked over to the ocean as he was driving, it was brown. He said like brown, like it was a lot of dead sea creatures in there, that carcasses just rotted and just died, around that shoreline. And he said it had a terrible stench too. And he said that was back in August. And it's so strange that October 3rd, this article came out pretty much saying the same thing he was saying. Now, Florida, they're saying this is red tide destroying wildlife across Florida's southwest coast. Well, here's the thing. Florida has had a hot, record-breaking wildlife death from spring when they first started reporting on it all the way up until now. There have been millions of tons of fish, manatees, sharks, and turtles, everything removed from the shoreline because they're just dying so fast. And this doesn't really have sound, but I'm going to play this because it really pretty much confirms exactly what my uncle said about it being just brown down there around the shore. Yeah. So they have been talking about this red toxic algae in Florida from spring all the way up until now. I did an article, oh my goodness, it was either July or August, where they said they estimated the dead carcasses that were along the shoreline to 200 million tons. That is a lot of dead sea creatures washing up. All right, dozens of dead fish littered a Palm Beach County beach Wednesday as a toxic red tide appeared to spread along Florida's Atlantic coast. Florida's Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission officials confirmed Wednesday that low to moderate amounts of the algae that cause red tide have now turned up off 3 counties along the state's more densely populated East Coast. Blooms were confirmed in Palm Beach, Martin, and St. Lucie. And those are the counties where that were at one time untouched. They didn't have a lot of this problem there, but they do now. Okay. So this is the first time more than a decade that this algae, this what they're claiming red tide, is showing up on, on these counties along the shoreline. Wildlife officials are also testing Miami-Dade and Broward counties. Results for Broward were expected on Wednesday, but no mention of the county was made in an update posted online. In an email to the Herald, FWC spokeswoman Susan Neal said more results would be provided Friday. Okay. All right, who's trying to call me here? Oh, let me just get out of there. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay. And these are people that are just driving along the shoreline, and you can see in an all-terrain vehicle and wearing masks. Now, there's a reason why they're wearing masks, y'all, because people that are going down in that area, listen to these symptoms that they're having, just being in that general area around the beach. People are complaining about coughing, itchy eyes, and other symptoms that they're claiming is connected to red tide. And in fact, this one researcher in the article was saying that he and his wife went down there for the weekend. He's a researcher. They went down to Fort Lauderdale Beach. And after 1 hour of being down there, he and his wife both started coughing. They both had runny noses. His wife had to cover up her face with a shirt. And eventually they fled from out of there. Now, this is what my uncle was talking about. He was saying that when you go down, this is another article that came out on the 2nd, by the way, the day before. The ocean is brown. The crabs are dead, and the smell is unbearable. Welcome to Florida. And, it's amazing because I was just talking to him. Like I said, we had a conversation in August, and he said this was the case. But you know what? I'm not surprised that they're not opening their mouth until October about this. So it is saying that this is along the beach in Naples, according to this article. Yeah, it's telling you that environmentally something is seriously wrong. Now, on the Atlantic coast, it says the ocean water are pools of dark brown muck. That's how they're describing it. That is nasty. But yeah, see, you can even see the brown in the picture. Mm-mm-mm. No, that represents a lot of death right there. They said the dead crabs and other sea life litter the sands. Oh, the stench. You can't swim. There's not a soul in the water. And these things are occurring where usually the beaches are crowded down there in Florida. No, not now. All right. So now they're reporting this on the Atlantic Ocean coastline along Florida and also around the islands like the Keys. It's also being reported there. So you can see the map where they're showing you this whole area right here is where they see red tide in Florida. The Atlantic coast rarely sees red tide because the algae that cause um, cause it, usually they're saying it's off of the Gulf Coast and not the Atlantic coast. Well, now it's the Atlantic coast. And ladies and gentlemen, don't buy that this is just some red tide. This is far worse than that. Um, we still never found out what happened in North Carolina at the Brunswick nuclear plant that called that state of an emergency. And we also can't forget about Fukushima and that radiation going worldwide. So, in order for them to just stand on that beach and get sick just from standing there, there's a lot more going on environmentally here in the US, you know. And unfortunately, we are in this country where everything is always kept secret, or don't tell the public, or don't reveal anything. These are the kind of people that are running things. They're all about trying to keep things that are really important tight-lipped. And, if it wasn't for the many people on YouTube bringing out these kind of stories, nobody would hear about it at all. The media would rather spend their whole day talking about the Kavanaugh hearing and not talking about stuff like this. All right, so over the summer and fall, blooms ravished Gulf shores, shutting down beaches and crippling businesses. Fish kills continue to be reported between Pinellas and Collier counties. The Gulf get blooms seasonally between spring and fall and has had one every year since 1994. A bloom also appeared off the Panhandle last month. While the blooms form naturally offshore, scientists say coastal pollution feed them and make them worse. I bet radiation makes it worse. So anyway, I'm just going to go down a little bit. So they're talking about cleanup and all that stuff. The damage is done. You ain't gonna be able to clean this stuff up. I think every country, every state should be prepared for these large amounts of fish kill. It's going to happen. Even in the Bible, it says that the ocean would die. Yeah, that's prophesied. This is prophecy that we're looking at, y'all. And it was prophesied thousands of years ago that this would happen. And all of this is unfolding right dead in our face. This is going to happen, and it is. It is being fulfilled. So they're talking about beachgoers were complaining about symptoms as early as this past weekend. State officials explained testing along the Atlantic coast and collecting water along beaches about 2 miles offshore. Miami-Dade County officials had workers collect samples for 4 beaches. Wow. And they expect results in 24 to 48 hours. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I was briefly disrupted. So there you have it. If you are still eating seafood, you might want to think about stopping. Period. It's no longer an option. And, there was trash washing up the shores of the Dominican Republic this summer. And we've had environmental accidents right here around the US. Remember the Gulf Coast mega size oil spill? They never really clean this stuff up. They never do, you know, just like they never cleaned up Fukushima. And we don't know what happened in North Carolina. I don't know if some kind of leak happened and they're just keeping it quiet, but something definitely happened. You know, I realize, the hurricane can kick around a lot of things, but we can't even really put something like this on the hurricane because these die offs were happening long before Florence showed up. So something is definitely going on. It is not safe. If the water is turning brown, the ocean water is turning completely brown down in Florida, y'all might want to rack up on some bottled water and, you know, just be careful down there. I'm on the East Coast too, so I even use caution as well. So just be careful, ladies and gentlemen, because this is some sick behind mess going on. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.